There is no doubt about it. This is the perfect time of the year that you could be improving your fantasy team, and it's really simple because there's going to be teams in your league that are currently scrambling. They're 0-4, they're 1-3, they're dealing with injuries, bye weeks, and you could come in and take advantage of their panic and fear. Because right now, there are 7 wide receivers in their own way who are about to break fantasy football, explode, give you a bunch of fantasy points, and you could probably get them on the cheap. And let's start by talking about Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Now, this is going to be one of the guys who's not going to be super cheap to get, but that's completely fine because my rest of season rankings right now, I have a top 150 rest of season rankings in the fantasy blueprint. They have JSN, if we redrafted today, as a mid to late first round pick. Yes, that high. Because the dude's just been that good in terms of receiving production. But then in a primetime game, everybody watched him have just 4 catches. I say just 4 catches for 79 yards. That's still a very good game, averaging 20 yards per catch, especially because he did this basically all in the second half where he wasn't targeted for, I believe, the whole first half of that game. But down the stretch in the second half, especially on those final couple of drives of the game, he came up huge for Sam Darnold with some big receptions. He was the go-to guy, and he has been all season long. Because so far this season, he's elevated from just being a slot wide receiver in the past to being a ball winner on the outside. 8.5 targets per game. A 35% target share is insane. It's the 3rd highest rate in the NFL right now, no matter what you're looking at. Like, look at any single stat you want to right now. Oh, his yards per route run, in my opinion, the best predictor of how efficient a wide receiver is and how good they are, only behind Puka Nacua. Over a 4 yards per route run is insane. If you're in the high 2s, that's good. If you're in the 3s, you're like elite. He is over 4. The only wide receiver in the range right now playing as good as Jaxon Smith-Njigba on a per route basis is Puka Nacua. And you can see that right here in this graph. Receiving efficiency through the first 4 weeks, excluding Monday Night Football, according to Stat Accountant on Twitter. These are all the wide receivers, right? Some of them are doing a little bit better than others. You zoom in, you see some of the names like Garrett Wilson's playing well, Zay Flowers. You see all those names. Up and to the right is as good as it gets. All the way over here by themselves are Jaxon Smith-Njigba and Puka Nacua. They are that much better than everybody else in the NFL right now. That much better than guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, right, who is also having a good year. Rome Odunze, Quentin Johnston, Emeka Egbuka, right? All those guys are having good years. They're really up and to the right. Different ball game for the outliers in JSN and Puka Nacua. Now, if you think about it, Puka Nacua, if we redrafted today, probably the number 1 overall pick in fantasy. At worst, he's a top 3 fantasy pick. JSN is in that tier of player. JSN would be the wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 if we redrafted today in most leagues. But there's a decent chance people don't view him that way right now. Like, sure, he's averaging 17.8 fantasy points per game. He's been a top 10 receiver, but he only has 1 receiving touchdown on these 35 targets. He should probably have somewhere around 3 receiving touchdowns based on his current volume right now and based on how much he's being used, getting a 20% target share in the red zone. This is a guy who I would imagine your friends still believe Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, all of these guys, Nico Collins, are still better fantasy assets than him. That's just not the case. And he has a quarterback in Sam Darnold who's looking very good. And remember Sam Darnold's wide receiver 1 last year, Justin Jefferson, who is a similar tier player. I would say Justin Jefferson is a better NFL player than JSN, but it's not by as wide of a margin as it once seemed. And what did Justin Jefferson do last year with Sam Darnold? Oh, 153 targets. That's the pace that you're currently getting right now for JSN. Oh, 103 catches. Also the pace that you're getting right now with JSN. And he finished as a top 3 receiver in fantasy. Again, also in the range of outcomes right now for JSN if the touchdowns start coming for him. So now at this point right now, this might be your last chance because he's coming off of a 4-catch, 79-yard game. It's only like 12 fantasy points. This is probably your last chance to buy somewhat low on JSN. Now, here are some of the recent trades going on. Emeka Egbuka is an absolute joke. Go get JSN. Devon Achane's pretty fair. I'd much rather have JSN than Jamar Chase, then Marvin Harrison. Amarion Hampton, I'd rather have JSN for sure right now. Bucky Irving dealing with an injury. Stefon Diggs, like, these are all jokes. Again, if you look at my rest of season top 150 rankings, if you're a Blueprint member, if you're not, you can check it out and learn more at jointheblueprint.com. JSN is a top 12 and top 10 overall player rest of the season. Try and acquire him. This is your last chance probably to do so all year for a cheaper price. And you could also probably get Jakobi Meyers really cheap right now based on how bad Geno Smith, this Raiders offense, has looked the past 3 weeks. They looked awesome in week 1, not the case lately. Now, if you do recall, Jakobi Meyers to start the season was looking pretty good. 8 catches, 97 yards, 6 catches, 68 yards, a boatload of targets in these games. He was putting up top 24 wide receiver numbers the first 2 weeks of the season, and then it's cooled off. Last week, just 3 catches, or 2 weeks ago, just 3 catches. Last week, just 4 catches. If you remember that game 2 weeks ago, it was the Trey Tucker explosion in a game where they're playing from behind against the Commanders. Geno goes off, throws for a bunch of yards, 145 of them and 3 touchdowns sadly go to Trey Tucker. Not much left for Brock Bowers, gets just 4 catches, or Jakobi Meyers 3 for 63. But there wasn't a floor game, right? Even 3 for 63, 10 fantasy points or so, okay, that's fine. But we didn't have a terrible game up until about this last week. 4 catches for 30 yards for Jakobi Meyers isn't great. The entire offense struggled. When your leading receiver is tight end Brock Bowers, who was just catching dump offs for 5 catches for 46 yards, that's going to be a problem. Trey Tucker regresses back down to just 2 catches for 13 yards. Geno Smith in this game, they leaned on the running back Ashton Jeanty, who got unlocked on the ground. Geno only threw 21 times in this game. He threw 3 interceptions as well, so that's part of it. When your running back is averaging 6.6 yards per carry on 21 carries, you're probably going to lean on the run when the quarterback is struggling. So it makes sense why the entire passing attack and the offense and guys like Jakobi Meyers struggled last week, but he's still seeing all of the targets on this team. Like last week in a game where they struggled, he earned a 35% target share, a season high and a team high. The next closest wide receivers were at 10%. Like again, Trey Tucker's going to have a couple of weeks this season like he did in week 3 where he pops off, he finds an end zone, he's fast, he's going to get unlocked downfield. That's the type of nice player, speedy downfield, that fits with Geno Smith and his big arm and the willingness to throw those passes, but he's not going to be a consistent player like Jakobi Meyers. Jakobi Meyers through 4 weeks right now, the usage is good. 8.3 targets per game, top 13 in the NFL. A 26.6% target share is 15th in the NFL. That last year, this would have ranked top 10. So he is one of the higher volume wide receivers in the NFL on an offense that is struggling right now. But let's just look back to last year. In his final 12 games of the season, these are 12 games without Davante Adams on that team. He averaged 15 fantasy points per game on 9.3 targets per game. And now I would say, even though Geno is struggling coming off of a 3 interception game, Geno is still a better quarterback than they were putting out there last year. So be patient here. The first 2 weeks were good. The 3rd week was okay. The 4th week was bad. This is giving you a buy low window on a number 1 receiver in an offense that is still going to pass the ball. And that offense just does not have wide receiver competition. And Brock Bowers himself, I don't believe is healthy right now. And I just don't believe Geno Smith is going to be looking his way as much if that's going to be the case until he's 100% healthy. Now, Brock Bowers wasn't on the injury report last week, but if you're watching the game, the guy's like limping around out there. So something's got to give. In terms of Jakobi Meyers, you can get this dude super cheap. Take advantage of the fact Khalil Shakir, who's getting low volume right now, Shakir, he ended up having multiple touchdowns the last 2 weeks, 1 in each of those weeks. Go trade Shakir for Jakobi Meyers if you can. Tony Pollard, I'd be trading as well. He's done absolutely nothing in the worst offense in the league. He's looked terrible, and now Tajay Spears is back. Josh Downs definitely would be trading. Jamison Williams is pretty close at this point. He's been kind of a letdown, although that offense is good enough. Juwan Johnson with those 2 other tight ends and Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau coming back, I'd be trading him and selling high on him in all leagues, especially for Jakobi Meyers. Now, before we get into this next player, just 2 seconds of your time to hit the subscribe button. It really goes a long way. We are so close to 200,000 subscribers. That would mean the world to me. So just double check that you have the subscribe button hit. Again, it takes 2 seconds of your time. All right, there's a couple of wide receivers. That's the point of this video, but I quickly do want to touch on one tight end who, this is the number 1 tight end in fantasy football. He was to begin the year ahead of Brock Bowers. He is right now for the rest of the season. It's Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals, and everything about his underlying profile looks great right now. Trey McBride, he's coming off of a week on Thursday Night Football where the first half started out great. The second half, he didn't get as involved. 7 catches for 52 yards, so another 12.2 fantasy points in PPR formats. Whoa, the mic, I almost lost the mic here, but we ended up getting it. We're fine. Either way, where was I? Trey McBride, yes. The dude is just piling on receptions right now. The problem is they're just not getting enough time to throw downfield. Kyler Murray himself is not throwing downfield as much, but McBride is still second amongst tight ends with 8.8 targets per game, leads all tight ends with a 27% target share, and here's the key thing. He's seeing 24% of his team's red zone targets. Trey McBride last year was also heavily involved in the red zone. He actually, it was like a running joke, he led all of the NFL in targets inside the 10-yard line, but he only had 2 touchdowns in the final 2 weeks of the year, and that was it. But this is still a guy who is heavily involved right now in his team's offense in the red zone so far through 4 games. He has 4 red zone targets, 3 receptions, and a red zone goal line touchdown. That's 6th in the NFL. He has multiple deep targets, which is 3rd in the NFL amongst tight ends. And this is a player that when you watch the film, he still looks good. He's picking up yards after the catch. He's not being targeted in the most opportunistic parts of the field. He's usually having guys on him, but for the most part, everything looks good. He leads this team in targets just like he did last year over Marvin Harrison with 147 and over 110 receptions. Everything is on pace for him to once again have a quality season, especially if he continues to have that 24% target share. The offense has lost James Conner. They just lost Trey Benson, who's going to go on IR. The running game I don't expect to be good. They're going to have to lean on the passing game. That might fall behind in games more. That's going to lead to these double-digit target games for Trey McBride. And once he starts finding the end zone more consistently, if this target share in the red zone holds up, he's going to lead to being a top 15 asset the rest of the season across all players. So obviously the guy who has him in your league probably spent like a 3rd round pick on him. He's done decent for him, so they're not going to give him up super easily. But look at some of these trades happening right now. Cam Scatterbo for Trey McBride. Sell high on Cam Scatterbo as fast as you can. Drake London's pretty fair deal overall. Chuba Hubbard sell. Brock Bowers for Trey McBride, I'd give him up. Tucker Kraft, yes, I want Trey McBride. Brian Thomas, I want Trey McBride. I want Trey McBride over all these guys. Even Javonte Williams, even though he's been great, right? Garrett Wilson is a fair trade. I'll still take Trey McBride. Having the number 1 tight end at a position where honestly it's like Jake Ferguson's producing right now, and that's it. Like consistent production. It's basically Jake Ferguson, Tyler Warren. I forgot about Tyler Warren, and then Trey McBride. I don't think Ferguson's going to hold up all year. There's like 2 tight ends in fantasy that are difference makers. Why not try and get one if you can in Trey McBride? Now, Trey McBride heading into week 5 is definitely a top 50 overall player. If you want to see exactly where he ranks and the rest of my top 50 completely free, you can check it out with the link in the description below or by heading to fantasyrankingsfree.com. That is fantasyrankingsfree.com. All right, the next guy we got to talk about is the rookie Terrell McMillan, because honestly, this guy's having like a really good year. It's just not all coming together in terms of fantasy production. This past week, the Carolina Panthers offense absolutely stunk it up again. They look terrible out there, but once again, Trey McBride for the 4th straight week, every week of the season, led the team in receiving with 62 yards. He led the team this week with targets with 8 of them as well. The problem was the offense struggled again. Bryce Young looks terrible, and Terrell McMillan only came out of this game with 8 fantasy points. However, the usage remains really high for him. As JJ Zacharyson points out here, Terrell McMillan has hit a 25% target share in 3 of his first 4 games. This is a rookie, by the way, hitting an elite target share on the season that has accounted to him ranking 6th amongst all wide receivers with 8.8 targets per game, a very strong 24.5% target share. And when you compare that to the rest of his team, he has a 25% target share in the season. Hunter Renfrow getting some checkdown targets is at 16%. Xavier Legette, one of the worst wide receivers in football right now and also injured, with a 15% target share. And then nobody else is above 10%. There is nothing here in this passing attack. Maybe Jalen Colker, who they just said is still week to week with his injury, maybe he's close to coming back. I don't expect him to take more than like the Hunter Renfrow 16% target share away. It is Terrell McMillan and nobody else. So yeah, he's only producing wide receiver 34 numbers, 11.5 fantasy points per game, but he's getting the targets and he has no touchdowns yet. If you're going to get 8.8 targets per game, even in a bad offense, eventually those 9 or so targets per game are going to start to lead to some touchdowns, maybe even a multi-touchdown week. Please, please, please do not be selling low on Terrell McMillan. If he's not on your fantasy team, try and get him as soon as you can. Because we just saw in week 2, when the offense looks half decent, you can get a 100-yard performance out of Terrell McMillan when Bryce Young looks at least a little bit competent back there. Now, either Bryce Young is going to improve or they're going to have to bench him and put Andy Dalton back there, who's not great, but he can at least get the ball to number 1 receivers like we've seen the past couple of years when he's gotten starts with the Carolina Panthers. So right now, McMillan, just hold tight. The touchdowns are coming on this high and this great of volume. And look how cheap you can get him right now. Yes, go trade TreVeyon Henderson for McMillan. Yes, trade Brown for McMillan. Quinshon Judkins is basically a fair deal. I still want McMillan, believe it or not. I'm very scared of this Browns offense with those quarterbacks and Dylan Gabriel now starting and maybe Shedeur Sanders down the stretch. All of these guys at this point. Trade Kyle Pitts for McMillan. Trade Jordan Mason for McMillan. Definitely Jameson Williams. Definitely Jalen Waddle. Definitely Jordan Mason. All these guys, go get Terrell McMillan. If we redrafted today, McMillan is probably a 3rd, at worst, early 4th round pick. Now, somebody who a lot of people are panicking on, so we have to discuss him, is Ja'Marr Chase. Because if he's on your fantasy team right now, what do you do with this guy? What do you do with any of the Bengals? You have to hope for a quarterback change, and maybe they trade for Jameis Winston or one of these other quarterbacks out there in the market who could maybe improve the team. But the truth of the matter is, if Jake Browning keeps starting, it's going to be ugly. Look at these last 2 games. 5 catches for 50 yards, 8.9 fantasy points. Then 5 catches for 23 yards. No downfield usage for Ja'Marr Chase, just 7 fantasy points in week 4 on Monday Night Football. It was the worst offensive efficiency outing of the entire season on a per-play basis was the Bengals for any team, not just their team, any team on Monday Night Football. It doesn't get much worse than that, but it has to get better. Because we're talking about a Triple Crown winner, 175 targets, 127 receptions, 1,700 receiving yards, 17 touchdowns last year. This guy is way too talented to be used as just a wide receiver screen and a quick slant type of a guy. He has to win downfield, but the offensive line is not holding up, and Jake Browning does not look like Jake Browning did a couple years ago when he was filling in as a starter and at least looked average. And now you're getting big media outlets like Ryan Clark, and whatever you think of Ryan Clark, the guy has 500,000 subscribers and a popular podcast, The Pivot, and he's now calling for Jameis Winston would be the perfect guy to trade for. He would be explosive to see him with T. Higgins, Ja'Marr Chase, and oh, by the way, so much fun. I completely agree, by the way. It would be so much fun. Jameis Winston is obviously not going to get any opportunities unless Jackson Dart and Russell Wilson get hurt with the Giants, so why not try and make a trade for him and put him into this offense where his play style definitely fits with what these guys, big wide receivers, T. Higgins and Ja'Marr Chase on the outside, want to do. It wouldn't be like pretty, like they're probably not going to win a ton of games, although their odds of winning might be a little bit better because you increase some variance on the offensive side of the ball. But let's not forget what he did last year with Jerry Jeudy. These are Jerry Jeudy's game logs last year. They were okay to start the year, 11, 12, 8, 13 points. Nothing crazy though, 2 points, 4 points. He started to struggle. Then Jameis Winston takes over, top 25 wide receiver, top 5 wide receiver, top 20 wide receiver. This is on a per week basis. The number 1 wide receiver with 40 fantasy points and 235 receiving yards. Oh, another 100-yard game, a 94-yard game. He started to produce 3 100-yard games in a 5-week span because Jameis Winston took over, and that was Jerry Jeudy, not Ja'Marr Chase or T. Higgins. Now again, odds are they're not going to make a trade. Trades just don't happen all that often in season in the NFL, but if it did happen, and by the time you're watching this, if it happened, that'd be sick. But Ja'Marr Chase, a lot of people are selling low on right now because they're panicking, and that's that's fine. DK Metcalf off of a big game going into the bye week, I'd rather have Jamar Chase. Jordan Mason, I'd rather have Jamar Chase. Emeka Egbuka, give me Jamar Chase. AJ Brown, I'd rather have Jamar Chase, right? There are certain guys, like I'd rather have Garrett Wilson at this point and some other players, but Jamar Chase is still a top 25 overall player rest of season. He wouldn't be a first round pick if we redrafted today. It'd be tough to feel great about him in the second round, but he's still a valuable player and a talented player, and this is literally rock bottom. It was the worst offensive showing by any team in the NFL in week 4. It will only get better from there, you would have to think. Now, in terms of things getting better, that's all that's happened this year for Quentin Johnston, who honestly is a buy high candidate. Like, if you want to pay a little bit up for Quentin Johnston, that's fine, because we've seen enough of this guy this year to know that he is actually the alpha on this team. Another 8 catches, 98 yards and a touchdown, 13 more targets on a 31% target share. Elite 31% target share, ahead of Keenan Allen, ahead of Ladd McConkey in week 4 for Quentin Johnston from Justin Herbert. That is great to see. Check this out as well. Quentin Johnston was a season high 38% first read target share. So that's different from what I just said. In terms of first read, Justin Herbert drops back. His first read, he's throwing it. Quentin Johnston led the team at 38%. That means you're the number one option that your quarterback trusts and the offense is being built around. Meanwhile, Ladd McConkey's first read target share rate has dropped every single week so far this season. He's been losing first read targets. He went from 28% to 25 to 21 to 20%. And the opposite is happening right now for Quentin Johnston. 24%, 30, 25, and 38%. This means Justin Herbert is trusting him more because he's actually catching the ball in the short, intermediate, and definitely deep parts of the field right now. I'm going to be honest with you, rest of season, Ladd McConkey is going to be like a boomer bust flex option. I'm sure he'll score a touchdown at some point this year and look a little bit better. Keenan Allen's going to be a boomer bust touchdown option. He'll have 40 to 60 receiving yards. Does he find the end zone? But Quentin Johnston is the guy that they're targeting downfield. They're targeting 7+ times a game, and Justin Herbert, especially in the red zone, is going his way right now. It's crazy to say this, but we're 4 weeks into the season. The film looks good. The numbers look good. All the underlying metrics is that he's the alpha the way that they're using him in this offense. He's the number one receiver on this team, not Ladd McConkey. That sucks if you took McConkey in the second round of your draft, but that's the case. Quentin Johnston, 9.3 targets per game, 4th in the NFL. An insane 33% red zone target. He's getting 1 out of every 3 of his team's red zone targets. That is hard to ignore right now. I mean, this is not going to hold up, I don't think, but the dude's on pace for 17 touchdowns, 94 catches, and 1,400 yards. It's insane. And oh, by the way, the offensive line right now is banged up. If we scroll down to it, obviously Rashawn Slater's out for the season. Joe Alt just suffered a high ankle sprain. Who knows if that's going to take 4 to 6 weeks to come back. We saw in the second half of this last week, once all those injuries hit, they just resorted to passing the ball. Omarion Hampton had a good game this past week if you pull up his box score, but it was only on 12 carries, right? It ended up being to throw 41 times for Justin Herbert, and I think this is going to be the case moving forward, and he's going to be more efficient in better matchups. If he throws 41 times, odds are moving forward he's going to have much more than 200 passing yards. But if the offensive line is banged up, they're going to drop back and pass because they're just not going to be able to run the ball as efficiently. At least that's what I believe moving forward, and that should help their number one receiver who's seeing a 30% target share. Also worth pointing out, according to Sleeper on Twitter, Quentin Johnston has 70+ receiving yards 3 times in his first 32 games before this year. He's done that in all 4 games this year, and they say, who does this remind you of in terms of like a year 3 breakout? Devontae Adams is who they have pictured here next to him. It's at least interesting to compare that. Quentin Johnston right now, yeah, I would trade Jalen Waddle to get him. I'd trade Rachaad White even with the Bucky Irving injury. I'd trade Woody Marks. Jamar Chase, I wouldn't be trading at this point for him. Travis Etienne's pretty close. I would definitely trade Keenan Allen. George Pickens, I would not be trading. Chase Brown, I would be trading at this point for him. If we redrafted today, Quentin Johnston is a 4th round fantasy pick, and yeah, that's how good he's been. Now, as I've done in every single week this year, I'm going to keep doing it, so I'll be quick. Just a reminder that you should be trying to trade for Rashee Rice, especially if you're 4-0 or 3-1 in your fantasy team, and you could last a couple of more weeks before he returns, because once he returns in 3 more weeks, he's going to be the number 1 receiver in an offense that already looks better once they got Xavier Worthy back last week. And as I've been reminding you, in his career, in 20 career regular season games, he averages 14 fantasy points per game. That includes a whole season where he was a rookie. But if we scroll up here on RotoViz and we scroll to what he did just last season in his 3 starts, right? His first 3 games of the year, his 3 completed starts, small sample, of course, but if you date back to the postseason the year before that, he was also dominating. 21 fantasy points per game, 96 yards per game, almost 10 targets per game for Rashee Rice. This is a guy who was leading the Chiefs in every single receiving category from the end of 2023 to the beginning of 2024 before injury. And we got to see this Chiefs offense get Xavier Worthy back in week 4. He remained healthy, had 5 catches for 83 yards, added like 30 rushing yards on the ground as well. And the Chiefs, what did they do in that game against the bad Ravens defense? They took advantage of them. They put up 37 points. They had 30 points as well in the 3rd quarter, and then they kind of took their foot off the gas in the 4th quarter of that game when Lamar Jackson was hurt and it was a clear blowout. But that was good to see. The Chiefs offense actually looked good. Patrick Mahomes had time to throw. Xavier Worthy just getting 1 piece back improved the entire offense. Once you get that 2nd piece back, your number 1 receiver, Rashee Rice, we might be actually back to the fun 2021, 2022 Kansas City Chiefs high-powered offense. This is the current target shares on the Chiefs. Marquise Brown, 23%. Thornton 15%, and Juju and Xavier Worthy 13%. Worthy's will come up now as he's playing more games, but there's just nobody here. Marquise Brown, Thornton, and Juju Smith-Schuster are all going back to the bench and going back to being 4th, 5th options in this passing attack once Rashee Rice is back. If you are 3-1 or 4-0 or 2-2 and you think you've just been like barely robbed, you got a lot of points in your league, you're a good team, trade Brian Thomas to get Rashee. Trade Emeka Egbuka. I wouldn't trade Devontae Adams or George Pickens. Trade Ladd McConkey to go get him if you want. Ja'Cory Crosby for sure at this point. Travis Etienne, Jalen Waddle for sure at this point. Because you were 3 weeks away from having a week in and week out, especially now that the bye weeks are here, top 12 to top 10, if not higher, fantasy wide receiver on your team. Now, before we get into this next wide receiver, who you might have to pay up a little bit for, but that's fine. I don't know if you know this, but I've teamed up with DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, and they're offering you a chance to win some real money. All right, here's what I'm talking about. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, whether it's your favorite team, whether it's a guy that you like that week based on his matchup, and that allows you to unlock the upside to potentially win some real money. It's as simple as that. There's no convoluted rules. There's no gimmicks. You just pick more or less on some players, and then you watch those players perform. And now here's the best part, a little bit of a bonus for you. New DraftKings Pick 6 customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This is your opportunity to put your football knowledge to the test. Just download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code SAL. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6, the crown is yours. And that next wide receiver who you might have to pay up a little bit for that I was talking about is Michael Pittman, because he just keeps stacking these strong performances and getting a lot of targets from Daniel Jones. Let's look at it in week 4. 4 more catches, 40 more yards, another touchdown, another nice performance of 16 fantasy points on 10 targets in this game for Michael Pittman. All he goes out there like he did this past week, and he leads the team. 25% target share, 10% more than any other receiver on the team. The only other guy on this team close to him in target volume this year at this point is the tight end Tyler Warren. But Michael Pittman is the guy who's being trusted on first reads in this offense. He's the trusted wide receiver to move the chains. Here's his game log so far this year. 20 fantasy points. Then he had to go out there and he had to face Patrick Surtain, only puts up 8 fantasy points on the outside, 19 fantasy points, and 15 fantasy points. He has 3 top 24 finishes this year, 2 top 12 finishes this year, and he's been fantastic in any game where he hasn't faced the best cornerback in football in Patrick Surtain. And it's worth pointing out right now that Daniel Jones, although he has not been playing as good as he did in week 1 and week 2, he's still playing just fine. Let's scroll down to his advanced stats on Player Profiler here. You can see that right now he ranks top 5 in QBR. He ranks 4th in EPA, expected points added. That's your overall efficiency. Yards per attempt, he's 3rd. Let's keep scrolling up. Passing yards overall in the season, he's 3rd with 270 per game. Everything right now for Daniel Jones is clicking. Shane Steichen has the perfect offense around him. Jonathan Taylor's balling out of the backfield. Tyler Warren in the middle of the field. Alec Pierce when he's healthy downfield, as well as Adonai Mitchell filling in for him last week. And Michael Pittman is moving the chains. It is not Josh Downs, as myself and many people thought it would be. Josh Downs, honestly, came into the season with an injury, but right now, Tyler Warren is just too good. Josh Downs and Tyler Warren operate in similar parts of the field, the short to intermediate parts of the field. On the outside, it's going to go to Michael Pittman. Deep downfield, it's been going to Alec Pierce as well as Adonai Mitchell last week when Alec Pierce was out. Josh Downs is just being replaced at this point by Tyler Warren, and Tyler Warren is doing a damn good job at it. And this shouldn't really surprise anybody, because last year, 2023 or 2024 to start the season, Michael Pittman was dealing with a back strain, and it wasn't just like a 2-week thing. He remained on the injury report basically the rest of the year. For 11 weeks, he had that injury. So then what happens heading into this year? Now that he's actually healthy, he's going out there earning over 7 targets per game, looking like a stud wide receiver, earning a 24% target share. Since he got off the injury report in week 15 of last year, he's averaging a 24% target share from both Anthony Richardson and now Daniel Jones, and he's looked damn good. Here's a nice tweet that sums it all up by Adam Pfeiffer over on Twitter. Michael Pittman has quietly been one of the best values in all of fantasy football. 24% target share, 3 top 24 finishes, which puts him as a top 5 in the NFL there. He's averaging 0.6 fantasy points per route, top 5, and he's number 1 in play action targets. If you know anything about football, play action leads to a lot of efficiency in offenses. It leads to deception. It keeps the defense honest, and it leads to these big explosive plays, especially after the catch, which Pittman has this year, and he's taking advantage of those types of schemed up targets. So since he's been good, you might have to pay up for him, but look at some of these deals that have happened the last 24 hours. Dalton Kincaid off of his touchdowns the last couple of weeks. Yes, sell high on him and go get Pittman. TJ Hawkinson, go get Pittman. Ricky Pearsall, who's just dealing with endless injuries, and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle will come back at some point. Trade him as well. DeAndre Swift for Pittman. I want Pittman. Kyren Williams at this point, it's getting really close. I'll hold on to Kyren, but if you could get Pittman Pittman plus somebody else for Kyren, go ahead and do that deal. Now, this next player is going to be, he's going to frustrate so many people. There's so many like these second round picks, Brian Thomas Jr., of course, and some other guys who are just frustrating. Chase Brown at the running back position. But how about AJ Brown? AJ Brown is an alpha who is not going anywhere in my opinion, but just lately these fantasy points haven't been there. This past week, oh my God, this was atrocious. 2 catches for 7 yards is atrocious, especially when he's going out there and getting a team high 9 targets. Nobody else even had 5 targets on this team. AJ Brown gets 9, only 2 catches for 7 yards. You go up to Jalen Hurts in this game in week 4, only threw 24 times. He threw 11 times in the second half of the game and had 0 completions. 0 completions in the second half of the game. What are we doing here? If you watch this game and you know anything about like fantasy and scoring and stuff, you probably felt awful when you saw the Eagles defense block like a punt and score a touchdown because you know, oh, they're playing with a lead, they're just going to run the ball. And that's exactly what they did. 9 carries for Saquon Barkley. As a team, they had 32 rushing attempts compared to just 24 passing attempts. It was very similar to the first 2 weeks of the season where Jalen Hurts wasn't throwing the ball. But the one underlying thing that is good for AJ Brown is he's at least getting the target volume. The volume's there. Eventually, it's going to click. Like, let's just look at this. Week 1, he came into that game with a hamstring injury, only 1 target. We know that was terrible. But then he gets 8 targets. Then he gets a 10-target game where he goes for over 100 yards. And then he gets 9 targets. These last 3 weeks, he's averaging 9 targets per game. 9 targets per game would rank top 5 in the NFL right now if he would have had that in week 1 as well. So although everybody's panicking and the Eagles are running the ball a ton right now and they're playing with leads and they look awful on offense with their new offensive coordinator and play calling, I get all that. But the dude is still averaging 9 targets per game these last 3 weeks and is one of the best wide receivers in football. I get it that you're panicking, that as a second round pick, you would like him to have these 6-catch, 109-yard games and a touchdown like he did back in week 3 every single week, but that's not happening right now. But we're only 4 weeks into the season. He's had 1 explosion game and 3 very good target volume games. Hold out if he's on your team, and if not, when people are panicking, go and buy low as soon as possible. Because this is still a dude who last year, despite being injured, missing 4 games, had 1,000 yards. The first 2 years before that on the Eagles, 1,400 and 1,500 yards. I'm completely fine still betting on AJ Brown the final 12 to 13 weeks of the season. Right now, the deals that you can get for him, I would trade Quentin Johnson, who we talked about in this video, for AJ Brown. I'd trade Chris Olave for him. Kenneth Gainwell, definitely. Devonta Smith for sure. Breece Hall for sure at this point, right? Marvin Harrison for sure. All of these guys I'm trading for AJ Brown. These are all real life trades, by the way, that are happening over the past 12 to 24 hours. Everybody is panicking about AJ Brown. I get it. He just had 2 catches for 7 yards in a half PPR format. He's not even getting you 2 fantasy points. I understand. That's exactly why I've sent in all, like every single league that I care about right now. That's why I've sent deals for AJ Brown, because I know people are panicking. You should send some deals as well. So these are the 7 wide receivers that you should try and trade for as soon as possible, because I do believe most, if not all, of these guys are about to explode and break fantasy football. They're too talented not to, and you can get them very cheap. Now, if you want to see the running back version of this video, the 5 running backs that you should trade for right now that also are about to explode and help you in your fantasy league, you can check out this video right here. I believe it's going to help you out a ton.